Got it. Yay! We are here. We
We
made it,
are
everybody.
here. We are live.
It's Monday, and I am super excited to be here with my friend Liz Lasky, who has hosted many summits, but she's hosting another one that's coming up this month.
By
And
the way, when you just said it's Monday, I was like,
is
oh, it is. Like, I actually was surprised to hear that.
well, I had to double check because I said that to somebody earlier, and she was like, "Yeah, is it Monday?" I was like, "I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong."
For 1 second, I thought one of us was not oriented to time or place, but it's
Sometimes
just me,
it could also be me.
as usual.
You never know.
Anyway, good to be with you. And yes, we're here talking about a summit coming up.
And it's free.
And
Let's
it
talk
is
about
free.
that.
It's
We
not
love
only that
free.
it's free, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it actually, I think, and we'll drop the link by the way.
Yeah.
Um, but it's called the 2024 Therapist, 21 Ways to Get What You Want in Business and Entrepreneurship. And yes, it's free, totally. Yes, it's incredible. Yes, yes, yes. But this is really what I think people should do with this summit. I really think people should take this summit and use it as a business course. Honestly, like I
Yeah.
think people should take on these videos, should take on these recordings. There's more than 21 because um I just I couldn't stop myself. I think we have probably 20, we have a bonus pack. So I think we have probably 25 interviews. But if I was just starting, if I was mid-career, if I was even like knocking it out of the park and doing really well, but still was like, ooh, how can I up the ante? I would study these videos like a business course, truly. It is gold in here.
That is such good advice.
Hmm.
I love that. And I can't wait. I'm so excited. I was looking at the website last week actually, and I just was like so impressed. Like every picture I saw, I was like, "Oh, cool. Oh, cool."
No, everyone here is so impressive. And of course, you are a guest, you are an expert on our panel. Our interview was incredible. And I got so much out of our interview personally, like personally and also professionally. I had so many takeaways from the things that we were talking about. We get into, like, you and I get into all things about retreats. We get into, your own story of where you started to where you are now. All of those, we got into a lot of just such inspiring parts of what you've built. And every single interview here, it's like each one's better than the next.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah, it's wild. It's really wild.
Well, there's a great list of folks
Yeah.
who are in there, and I know that I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like this is the same for anybody who does something like this. Like you put everything into it. You share, you're vulnerable, you're authentic, you're not gatekeeping, you're not holding back. And that just, I don't know, speaks to the value of what you're going to get out of all of these really amazing interviews that you did.
Yeah. Thanks. I think it's a great group. And by the way, if you're watching this live or not, if you have any questions, go ahead and put any questions you have in here. But um, I think one of my goals, speaking of gatekeeping, by the way, I think one of my goals that I aim to do with these summits, and this is why I say treat it like a business course. Not everyone can join a business course. Not everyone wants to join. For example, I have a year-long business mastermind. Not everyone wants to join a year-long mastermind. No one wants to just always sign up for like that like I have a 6 module recorded course, Biz 101. But people, maybe you don't want to do that on your own. Maybe you feel like it's all the same stuff. Maybe you don't want to commit for a year, right? There are all of these things that might be barriers. Maybe you don't have the cash. Maybe it's just not the right season. Like there are lots of different reasons, even why we haven't bought things in the past and for at certain times. And back to the gatekeeping piece, part of what I want to do and part of what my mission is let's not gatekeep and just give all this away. And one of the things I actually want to really commit to in the next little while, and the summit has really been a big inspiration for this, is I just want to give stuff away and give stuff away for free and give therapists some really good skills, some really good concepts, give therapists a little like cheerleading. Come on, you got this. This isn't that hard. Look at all these other people who are doing this. Might not always be easy. It might be simple, but it might not always be super
Yes.
easy. And I'm down to just give stuff away. So this summit is a really big effort to do that, to just give away some really good lessons, some really good takeaways for all types of therapists who want to get what they want in business and entrepreneurship. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, I'm not interested in building a business. Totally got you. This isn't for you. We'll come back. We'll get you the next round, you know? But if you are sitting there and you're like, ooh, yes on the business, yes on the entrepreneurship, yes in diversifying, yes in creating something to sell, yes in a digital product, there's something for you in here for sure.
Well, first of all, I see some people watching with us live on my phone. So if you've got questions,
Hey,
make sure to post them. And then if you're watching the replay, make sure to put hashtag replay so that we know that you saw it and we can come back and we can answer your questions for you. But Liz, I want to know, tell us a little bit about your story because
yeah,
we talk a lot in each interview about the person you're interviewing story, but I think your story is also interesting and fascinating. And you're an
mhm,
LCSW, but now you're a business coach and consultant. So tell us a little bit about that transition.
totally. So I am through and through a social worker. I love social work. I always say the world would be a better place if everyone got an MSW. I came out of my master's degree and just I just, it wasn't even that I loved it. It just was me. Like there was so much about social work that I just had in my bones and in my guts. Like it was me. It was so aligned.
Yeah.
And at the time I had finished my MSW in New York, and I had stayed in New York to do my PhD in social welfare. And again, I just loved it. Like it was just me. It was just something that felt so inside. Like there was no question that I was going in the right direction.
Mhm.
And I loved the face-to-face part of social work. I loved the looking at the macro piece of social work. I loved connecting those two. I worked for 15 years in middle schools in New York City, as a social worker. I still do agency work now. Like I still feel very, very connected to social work. And and when I was doing my PhD, one of the stories I love to tell was, and by the way, tell me if they had this in your program, because every like helping professional program is so different on this. But in our program, they encourage us to go seek therapy and go to treatment. Did you have that, Gab?
No, but I should have. And definitely some of the people who graduated with me could have really used that. But we didn't
Right.
have that. We did not.
So we had, I don't really remember it coming to be so much when I was doing my MSW, but then in my doctoral program, I remember that, and by the way, if you're watching this, put in the chat if you had that or not, because I'm always so curious to hear. And it's often a 50-50 split. Like I really, anyway, so there I was doing my PhD, and I had a lot going on in my life at the time. Like I was in my 20s, I was living in Manhattan. I was working full time in a middle school, as I mentioned. I was doing my PhD at night. I lived by myself. My family, I'm from a different country, so I was here. My sister lived close by, and I had a best friend here, and I had friends here, but like there were just a lot of things going on. I was single. I was really tired because like I was working, and I
Yeah.
was a new social worker, and I was going to school, and did I mention I was single? Like there were just a lot of things going on at the same time. And the idea of going to see someone was really encouraged. And I finally went to see someone. And a friend of mine made a recommendation to someone, and every Friday at 4 o'clock, I would go see this social worker on the Upper West Side of Manhattan on West 72nd Street, 72nd Street, and on the West Side. And every Friday at 4:50, when I left there, I felt worse about myself than when I walked in. And P.S. I'm an LCSW. I know the goal is not to leave there walking on air and to be on cloud nine. And I knew that, but the problem for me was I felt like I kept leaving those sessions looking for a problem that I felt like I didn't have. Like I couldn't find the problem. And I had just told all of you what was going on in my life. Like I was in a country by myself. I was working full time. I was, doing a PhD. I was single. Like there were things that were going on. Just like any one of those things could have used support. But even still, I wanted to expand. I wanted to do other things, but I just kept leaving there being like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And nothing against this therapist. Like probably she was, she felt like she had her hands full with me too, but like I would leave there being like, what am I even doing? And I always say, like, if you want to feel better about yourself, just get on the crosstown bus in Manhattan, because there's for sure someone who's like way more sad than you. And I would get on the bus and I would be like, I am winning this sadness race, because I just would get on and be like, what am I doing? Like I'm going to therapy, and it is making me feel so bad, so much worse than before. It's making me feel like my problem is so big, I can't even uncover it.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible place to be. And I was in New York, which is a candy land of ideas and cultures and different places to be. And one of my friends invited me to be part of this group, and it really and this specific group was a group where the idea was, there was potential really everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was like a philosophical gathering, and it really led to my connection to the coaching world, and it really led to me sort of exploring what it looked like to think differently, that instead of looking for a problem, I could look for a solution, and that solution was available to us, and that there were new options available to us, and there were different avenues that I could take, and that I could create my own luck, and that I didn't have to just sit where I was sitting, and I could go somewhere else. And I started to really get into this, and started to get into this whole mindset, not only shift, reboot.
Yeah.
Like the way I rewired my mind when I was in my 20s has served me until this day, but was a reboot. It was a hard shutdown, restart, and it was a very challenging time, because remember, I told you I was also doing my PhD at the time. So there I was doing my PhD in social work, still working as a social worker. And then I found coaching and this idea of, potential is everywhere, and set a goal and get your goal. And I was really sitting there in this rub, like really in this rub of what is true, what is right, can you have both, can you not have both? And I started drinking the Kool-Aid, and I drank all of it, and drank it very quickly in the coaching world. And a lot of people are very surprised to hear, coaching is evidence-based practice. This is not just, this person on Instagram saying, hey, I lost 100 pounds, you can lose 100 pounds, here's a 6-week course to that. That is not coaching. Coaching is evidence-based practice. For example, I'm a fellow at the Institute of Coaching at Harvard University, and not one person in that room, when we're making presentations, I made 2 presentations from my own academic research, and I go to these conferences, and they are big people in the data world. This is not like, hey, we've done this, you can do this too. That is not coaching. This is resting on mountains of good science and good data. And I remember being in this moment of, hey, social workers, hey, therapists, there's this thing called coaching, and it's actually really cool, and it actually really works. And my social work world, my mentors, my supervisors, my professors, my teachers, looking at me like I was nuts. and
Mm.
saying it's an unethical world. How can you do that? Our goal here is not to take that stance with people. Not everyone has capacity for change. Not everyone can reach potential. Like these garbage mindset pieces that I sat there being like, not everyone has capacity for change. What are you talking about? Like, not everyone can get things that they want. Think about what you're saying. You're committing to someone staying stuck. You're committing to all systems, all staying the same, all moments of the day forever for these people. You're invested in people staying stuck. Like it just warped my mind. And then the coaching world thought I was equally nuts because I was taking things like ethics seriously, confidentiality seriously, dual relationships very seriously. I was in this place in between where it gave me a lot of, I don't know what the word is, angst. Like I felt like I didn't fit in either place.
Yeah.
So I just went in. I read everything. I educated myself. I was writing. I was submitting to journals. I was getting hate mail from people telling me I'm the head of a doctoral program. Coaching is bogus. Do not contact me again. People in the academic world. I mean, it was hot. Like people were really into this, and I could tell that it was a real issue coming up in the field, that specifically in social work, but that there was resistance on the side of social work, which I could only guess there was resistance on the side of all types of therapy, and incorporating this evidence-based practice called coaching. And it took me a very long time till 2020 to have a piece around coaching and social work finally published in a social work journal. It took me so many rejections, so much time, but finally it happened. And I was so grateful for that. And I was so proud of myself for staying the course of something that I really believed in, because now we see that especially after one of these I had two articles published. One of them was around the ethical congruence of social work and coaching, and it was such an important green light. And I see that now as my work is being, published as and cited as primary sources and other papers and in other dissertations, which now in hindsight it makes me realize how much people were really looking for this too.
Yeah.
How much other people were really like, wow, coaching changed my life. And yes, therapy is therapy. Yes, coaching is coaching. And there's a time and place for both. I say that all the time. There's a
Yes.
time and place for both. Coaching is not a substitute for therapy. We're not using it instead of therapy. I totally get it. But as helpers, as people who are helping professionals, to think that coaching is bogus at this point in my life, I can certainly say I feel like that comment is insane. It is insane. And now as I said, I still hold an agency job. Right now, you and I are meeting from 12 to 1. I mean, this is live, so anyone can look that up, but
Yeah.
I'm on my lunch. Like I'm on my lunch. My supervisor knows, of course, that I do things on the side. I mean, I have no secrets about it anywhere, but I still hold an agency job. And I also have a school of coaching where I specifically teach helping professionals how to coach, because we really need to learn in a different way and to make sure we're not slipping into that therapy role. So in addition to that, I also coach a ton of people along the way. Most people who come to me want to build either a coaching business as a therapist, or they want to build out either new branches of business, or they want to build their own therapy business or expand their current business. So I like to say I teach coaching, and I also teach people how to coach. I teach coaching and I also coach people along the way. Those are going to be the same thing. Um, so one of the reasons, and I think just because I love to teach so much, is that one of the things I love to do is create summits, exactly like the one that is coming up, because I love to bring knowledge to people, which is the teaching piece. And I think that we also have to break down some of these business concepts for therapists. In fact, one of the things that I noticed throughout the summit the most, one of the things that I would say almost every single person said on the summit, was that no one ever taught me this. No
Yeah.
one ever taught us this in our as we were coming up as therapists. Nobody taught us this in schools. People are starving for business training.
Yes.
Starving. That's why I say use this as a course. Sign up. It's free, but use it as a business course. Take it seriously.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I'm like, where do I want to begin with everything you just said? First of all, I had chills when you were talking about coaching and like mindset shifts because I feel like that also really helped me. And I still go to therapy and I have an amazing therapist that really helped me a lot. But the things that help me with my burnout and shift, and people will ask me all the time, right? Like, oh, you have 15 streams of income and you like your life looks like you're on vacation all the time. And I'm like, I made it this way. You can do it too. And my friend Megan, who's also in the summit, who a lot of you probably
Love
know,
her.
I was searching in her Facebook group for something like a year ago, and an old post of mine came up from 2020 where I said I was afraid my business was going to fail because I had a group practice that was mostly Medicare. And I was so afraid. And I wrote this whole like fear-based post, which I would never say anything like that now. So it was so interesting to see my mindset in 2020 because I was terrified and everything I did was from scarcity and everything I did I was afraid. And when I was able to shift that, like that is when the change really happened for me.
Yeah. But here's what I want to say about the piece around anyone can have this. I agree with you. Everyone can have this. We don't all want that.
No, which is
And I think this is a really important thing. I think it's a really important thing to say because this is something that I want to give voice to a lot. Um, Although I would like to go to your beachside moments because, like, don't we all? I mean, yeah, they look gorgeous. I just said to my husband today, I'm like, I feel like I need a beach. He was like, see you later. Um, Here's the thing, not everyone wants to build out to the level that, for example, you and I might be functioning at, or they see people who are listing their incomes,
yeah.
and they're very high incomes that people may or may not relate to. You might not want to build even to a group practice. You might not want to have, like, back in the day, like saying things like getting you to six figures was, people were listening to that. Now, even saying getting to six figures ended up being so watered down in the marketplace. People are going for seven figures and get your
Yes.
8 figure
Eight.
business. Like, huh, like, come on. Like, are you serious? Like no social worker in mental health clinic or in an agency is sitting there being like, oh man, I'm between 7 and 8 figures. They are sitting there thinking like, I want to take my kids to Disney.
Exactly.
I want to be able, my kid is 3 and can't pronounce his R's. And I want to go to the best speech pathologist
Mhm.
in my area, but she's cashing $300 a smack. And I just want to say that I don't think the only way to get what you want in business and entrepreneurship as a therapist is to build a company. I think, and part of the reason why I wanted to have the summit this way is because I think that we have to, as therapists, people who have such incredible skills, that I don't want anyone to ever to feel stuck.
Yeah.
The option isn't only stay in agency or go somewhere else. I'm a perfect example of that. Stay in agency. And by the way, if you have a full-time job, it's your best business loan you're ever going to have in your life.
Yeah.
I always say to people, stay in your job as long as you can. Stay.
Yes.
Use your lunch hour. You're going to wake up a little bit early. You might go to bed a little bit late. Like, you might have to eat something. Someone might have to give somewhere. But like, I'm not your coach who's going to be like, you're going to wake up tomorrow. You're going to quit everything and stop talking to your mom so you can build a business. It's like not how I think.
Yeah.
I think that we get to have it all. We get to have it all. Little bit, 1%, little baby step at a time. And I say that to say, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I do want to have a healthy multiple six-figure business. I love that for you. We love that for you. But if you're also sitting there being like, you know what, $2,000 a month, an additional 2,000 a month would really make a difference to my family. That to me is the same level as I want to build a six-figure business. And I think we need to give more voice to that. Times are tough for people. The grocery store is expensive. There are people who would be happy with another $500 a week.
Yeah.
I think we have to also just notice for ourselves as therapists that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And we have enough skills that we can figure out what it is that you can offer, how you want to charge for that. And it doesn't, again, it doesn't have to be that you have to, leave your job and have 40 clinicians under you. It can also just mean like your kid goes to speech and you get to go to Disney and walk into Costco and not have a panic attack.
Yeah.
This
Or
is real life.
and I think that's what's so important is that people forget or they get lost on when you see, like, especially with social media. And I know I follow people who they do post their income. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's not for me. And some people are like, I made $30,000 this week. And I'm like, that's awesome. Good for you. But also, we have to define success for you. And that does not necessarily mean
Yeah.
that you made $30,000 this week. That might mean, yeah, you get to take your kid to the best speech pathologist there is, or maybe you don't like mornings and you want to sleep until 10 every day. Maybe that's success, right? Like you have
Right.
to find that for yourself. And it doesn't mean that you have to build out this huge business and have this huge brand. It's very unique and personal for
Yeah. And I want to really make a case for that in the therapy world,
yeah.
that that it doesn't have to be so all or nothing.
Yeah.
And my bigger point is that therapists have enough creative, interpersonal, fun, useful skills that
Yes.
and this is where I get delusional, but this is what makes me a great coach. There is absolutely nothing standing between you and making what you want to make, whatever that is, whether it's $300 a week or it's 300,000 a year. You have enough skill. You might need a little help to save you a little time. And I personally value coaching and pay through the nose for advice, because why do I want to waste my time when someone else has done this more quickly and they have
Yep.
the wisdom that I don't have? But I just think that therapists are creative. They know how to hustle. They know how to problem solve. And I just don't see anything in the way between you and getting what you want, if you truly want that.
Yeah. That's what you have to figure out. And that's part of it too, is that we can be a little bit like narrowly focused and we're surrounded by therapists. So we think like what we know that everybody knows. And
Yeah.
I remember like when I still had my group practice and I had a different Instagram account that's no longer the first thing that I posted was like this TikTok. I had this idea, everybody knows the five senses meditation. We think everybody knows that, but I was like, I bet there's a lot of people who don't know that.
Yeah.
And so I posted a video of that to this song and it went like it didn't go viral, but it got a lot of views and a lot of engagement. And people were commenting, like, this is so helpful. I had no idea. But if I told a therapist five senses meditation, they're like, everybody knows that. Why would I post about that? That's like so obvious. But you have to shift your thinking with
Hmm.
stuff.
I also think in general, and I also, like, you all heard me say this, I love being a social worker and I love social work. But I think sometimes in the therapy world, we have a different relationship to potential
Mm,
versus the coaching world, where in the coaching world, the limit does not exist.
yeah.
Right? The whole point of coaching is to help someone reach their personal and professional maximum potential. Right? We're always going towards potential. Coaching is never problem focused. It is always going towards potential. Coaching also, by the way, coaching is not a healing modality. So you're not going to coaching to be able to heal something that is broken, or to address something that's real diagnosis. We have to be clear about that too.
Yeah.
But when we look at the two industries, the therapy industry and the coaching industry, which we're seeing more and more overlap, I notice all the time that people who are my straight coaches, people who are not therapists, they're just straight coaches, their conceptualization of what is possible looks very different than what a therapist's idea of what is possible.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is our training, it's our upbringing as therapists. Perhaps some of that is our own history and our own family. And of course, where we come from. I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg? But I think one of what I want to do is really help therapists see another way, be
Yeah.
able to see that there are other ways, that there actually is potential that we can reach. Not even if we're therapists, especially because we're therapists.
What are some other, um, I don't know, like good takeaways or maybe little nuggets that you remembered or that stood out to you from the summit?
I think one of them, I think one of my personal biggest takeaways, and then I'll share some other things that I would push people to really look for. My biggest personal takeaway was actually two things. One, I feel comfortable to share. One feels like a risk, but I'm going to share it anyway because I think it's an important thing for us to talk about. The first is that people, almost every single one, commented on how they felt like they were not equipped for business and that they did not have any training and that they were not taught this in school. And that everyone had not a learning curve, but what I call a learning cliff. Like everyone really had a tough time from the beginning. So I felt like that was number one.
Mhm.
Number two, and by the way, if you listen to this summit, I'm so curious if you have the same response. But I noticed that there was a difference in conversation depending on where someone was in their career and in what level of longevity their career.
Yeah.
And I really and I thought this was so great for a couple reasons because I felt like the people who I interviewed who were like 35, 40 and under had a different understanding of the world that for those of us, and I'm right on the cusp of this, by the way. So it was very cool for me to hear down and also to hear up and like put myself right in that middle. So the people who are 40 and under had a different understanding of how the world works, a different relationship with technology. And I felt like we're looking for something different. The people who were 40 and up brought a very different wisdom to the concept of business. And that this feels like a risk because I'm bringing age into it, and I think that and so I hope you'll give me a little bit of grace as I work out these thoughts for myself. And also that's why I'm inviting you to listen to these interviews and tell me what you think, because by the way, maybe I'm totally off base and it's my own stuff that's coming up for this too. I always say that, like, if I'm wrong, you'll tell me I'm wrong. I'm open to thinking about it. So I noticed that the people who were, the 40 and up, they
Mhm.
had a different take on how to really get what you want. And their take oftentimes was to go inward, to
Mm.
get to know yourself. And the younger crowd
Yeah.
had a formula that they were following.
Oh, interesting.
And we need both. We
Yeah.
need both. And that's what I mean. Like and if I hope it's okay, I'm putting in that crowd. I'm putting in the under 40 crowd. Like the under 40 crowd is boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You're working hard. you know you're in the tech space. There's
Hmm.
comfort with social media. There's a need. There's a feeling that there's a need for the social media piece,
Yeah.
where the 40 and up, some cared, some didn't.
Yeah.
But the wisdom that they brought the wisdom that they brought was just as important, maybe even more than whatever the formula was that the other person was bringing. So putting those together, that's why I think this has to be a business course.
Yes.
Putting these two together, you know, is really, I mean, that's what's so powerful about this summit, is that if you are able to have a learner's mind, by the way, no matter where you are,
Yeah.
and listen to these both critically, think about it critically, then putting these two together is like you're off to the races.
I think that's huge because I feel like that's what led to my own burnout was I felt like I had to follow a formula and that I did have to do certain things certain way. But then when I was able to go inward and understand myself and my values and my own nervous system and my passion and what I liked, that's where I felt like the switch happened for me. Because
Yeah.
I wasn't ignoring it, but I think that I'm technically a millennial. And I feel like we were brought up differently and like this hustle culture and like this work ethic. And I had to really undo like a lot of that stuff. And I still do, like all the time. But I didn't really think too much about me and what I wanted because I thought, well, if I do it this way, I'm not going to be successful. Like I
Right.
can't.
I'm guaranteed results if I do
Yep,
it this way. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so I had to unlearn a lot of that. And that still comes up all the time where I'm like, oh, I should be doing this and I should be posting more and I should send out this email and I should do that. But then I find when I rest and I'm just being and existing, that's when things really flow and come to me. So,
Yeah. And by the way, it's not to say that life is perfect on either side. Like I think the people who came with more practice, wisdom, and the people who have whose businesses have just been around longer.
yeah.
I think that a lot of them, and some of this was conversation recorded, and some of this was sort of off the record conversation. I think there are many people who had feelings that where they had wished that they were doing something that was a bit more, I don't know, I actually don't know what the word is, but like they had something that was a bit more tech focused, or they had something that was a bit more current, or they had something that's a bit more boots on the ground. And I think a little bit, if I'm being really honest.
Yeah.
But I think that also comes with a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of also, the entrepreneur is always keeping up with the times. The entrepreneur is keeping up with the times with a classic paradigm of what it means to have a business.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that to me, and just even talking this through with you is helpful too, because it's really pushing me to really think about, what these lessons are, because we're going to have a lot of therapists who are coming up, who are in the under 40, who are in the under 40, who are coming up and they're making money and they're in these businesses. And from what I see and what I've noticed, they still want to come to people like me or older, because they still want to take those answer those questions that are rooted in longevity and
Yeah.
in this practice wisdom that, for better or worse, we just don't have when we're younger.
No, you don't. And that's okay. And that's why you go to
Yeah,
somebody who's been there before and who's done it before. That's the best way, or one of
it
the best.
I agree. And I think there are people who want to figure it all themselves. And hey, that's cool. Like, good for you. But I don't know why you wouldn't want to save your time. And um, I think advice, like we're so taught not to give advice, but I think that advice is like one of the most underrated things
Yeah,
in our world. Like sometimes advice can make it or break it for you.
it's what you need. I mean,
Yeah.
it's why it's why I like coaching. I'm like, just tell me what to do. You've already done it. I don't want to figure it out. Tell me what is a good
And
form.
you don't always have to.
Yeah. Sometimes you do, and a lot of times you don't, especially for me, really specifically like marketing. That would I prefer to just have somebody tell me what to do. And they have a whole
Yeah.
degree in that, and they've been doing it way longer than I have. I'm like, just tell me. Tell me what works.
Yep. I agree. I couldn't agree more. No need to reinvent the wheel.
No. We have been talking for a long time, which I'm not surprised
Have
about.
we?
But yeah. It's your lunch. Is there anything else that you want folks to know or to leave on? I put the link in the live, so it's there. You can sign up. It's free. It's amazing. It starts on March 25th. There's lots of freebies in there as well. And if you come back and you watch this later, again, make sure you put hashtag replay so that we can come back and answer your questions.
Yep. Yeah, come over and join us. I mean, stay for as long as you want. Come for an interview and, unsubscribe. Stay for the whole thing and, be my best friend. I don't know. The options are endless. The options are endless. I think, again, just going back to what my mission is over the next little bit, and I'm also saying this out loud so I can be held accountable a little bit too, is that there's just no reason for our industry to stay in the dark around what it means to build business. And I just really, I'm not into gatekeeping. I really want to share as much as I can with as many people as possible. I hope this summit is a step in the right direction. So if you're sitting there and you're curious about building a business or embodying the role of an entrepreneur and you want to learn more about it, or you're curious about it, come on over. It is free, and you will walk away with something for sure.
I love that so much. I'm so honored that I was able to be a part of it and that you came and spent your lunch hour with us today.
Anytime.
All the details are below in the comments. And Liz is here. If you have questions, just tag her. I'll tag her too. Yeah, we want to know your feedback and if you enjoyed the summit and your takeaways, that's always important for all of us.
Thanks, Gab.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
bye,
being
everybody.
here. Bye. Thanks.